Welcome to Sokoman's webinar. Today we have Tim Froud, the President, CEO, and Director, as well as Peter Dimmel, Director of the company, presenting the Sokoman story. You're going to be updated on the flagship Moosehead project, and you're also going to hear something exciting, which is the news about the new project that we've recently acquired called Fleur. So we are going to do the presentation first, followed by a Q&A after that. And we already have quite a few questions. So in the event that your question doesn't get answered, please just send it along, send another one along to us by email, and we will respond absolutely within the next 24 hours. So we're excited to have all of you here. Most of you will know the story a little bit, but there are some new people in the audience. So we're very excited to have you aboard. So without further ado, Tim, why don't you start the presentation?
Well, thank you, Kathy, and the viewing, listening audience. Thank you for joining in. It's a little different doing the PDAC from my own living room. It's not quite what I envisioned. But anyway, I guess it's what it is for now, and hopefully next year we'll all be able to meet in person and get more one-on-one and face-to-face and get into the story in more vigor, if you will. Yeah, like Kathy said, we're targeting high-grade gold deposits in Newfoundland. For those of us that are new to this story, typically what we're looking at here are high-grade Fosterville type deposits. Fosterville being a very high-grade gold mine in Australia. And some of you may be familiar with the word Dalradian, but it's basically a group of rocks over in the UK that are linked to rocks here in Newfoundland. And several gold projects have risen to the fore over there. And we thought the opportunity was there to basically take a district scale, poke at this for basically just staking costs. So it's very cheap. It certainly will not detract us from our focus at Moosehead, but without further ado. Okay, disclaimer in case we may say something that sounds remotely optimistic or positive, and we would be forthcoming if we didn't have this slide in here. Share structure, recent numbers, current treasury just under 4 million. Eric Spratis, our largest shareholder at 12.2%, and we have issued an outstanding just under 143 million shares. Well, this is our property list. We'll talk mainly today about Moosehead and at the last of it, Fleur. By the way, I do have a video that I'd like to share with everyone at the end of the presentation. Basically, it outlines the modeling of the mineralized zones we've identified to date at Moosehead. But because it's a moving video, we prefer to show that at the end when we have a little more time and a little more room for questions and things on it. So, okay, so Moosehead. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the history of Moosehead and things, but before that, again, the big structures, big gold story works, for pretty well any deposit type in Newfoundland, and not just out in central with Moosehead and obviously the orogenic gold there, but certainly, the Fleur, as I'll get into later on, with its links to, some very recent developments over in the UK with some new deposits coming online and a very large one, Curranault, in the final stages of permitting. So, these structures are real, and, they do have, what it takes, it would appear, to, bring lots of gold to the surface. And certainly, in Newfoundland, we've got Marathon at 4.2 million ounces, and of course, Newfoundland ourselves, targeting high grade gold. And Matador Mining at Cape Ray with over 1 million ounces in the ground. So, the thoughts that, small gold deposits are all you'll ever find in Newfoundland, I think, are rapidly falling by the wayside. Just a very quick look at the highlights. Infrastructure, I mean, you couldn't put a project in a better spot, in a better jurisdiction, in the top 10 in the Fraser Institute's jurisdictions of choice to go. Access via the Trans-Canada, very close to the assay lab and drilling companies. Internal logging roads, drill roads, perfect. We just got to put a mine in there. And as I mentioned, the geology and mineralization at Moosehead is very analogous to the Fosterville type gold deposit in Australia in terms of the age and geology, the structural setting, the type of gold bearing veins, the chemistry of the gold bearing veins, And it was given the thumbs up basically by an expert in the Fosterville style of deposits, who's a very important person over at Newfound Gold. And and basically shareholders followed his guidance into our stock back in 2018. So based on the similarities to Fosterville. So, and of course, we're also situated on the same trend as the 4.2 million ounce Valentine Lake gold deposit down in Central. So here we go. Here's that structure I was telling you about, the Valentine Lake structure. This big white feature that you see cruising through the property. And just off to the north side of that, we have basically the high grade area that, for the most part, is where we've been focused with our drilling. But of course, we have been doing project scale work, and that's where basically the targets have fallen out for Rig 2, which joined us just a few weeks ago, and which I'll get into in a little bit more detail in a few minutes. But here, you can clearly see the Trans-Canada and other paved highways, and proximity to town, power and manpower and things like that. So strategically located. Very quickly on the geology, here's that suture that runs basically from Valentine Lake down here in the southwest corner, up through our other two minor projects, East Alder and Crippleback. And all I'll really say about those is that they're valuable properties. I think we may be able to find partners for them in the near future, at least one of them. And of course, our advanced Moosehead project here at the very north end here, with our friends at Newfound just on the other side of the hill, but within the same sedimentary package. So I won't get into the history in any great detail, just to say that the project had a history. It came to us with over 100 drill holes already in place on the property. The key item to take away from that is that 99% of those holes were very shallow. And in fact, only one deep hole, as you see in the section at the bottom of the screen here, penetrated below 200 meters. And that hole actually did cut over 9 ounces of gold over half a meter. And for whatever reason, was never followed up. In fact, the last hole drilled was just a few months after that. And basically the property sat dormant for 14 years until we took over and drilled our hole 1801, which kind of brought us a little bit of notoriety for a while, and certainly kicked our market, in the pants. And and we're still living off basically the, I guess the enthusiasm that generated in terms of, we were able to raise subsequent financings, to move forward, move this project along. And here you see basically just a look at the vein. This is the discovery vein here. The red circles are obviously, indicating sites of visible gold. This is a very typical sort of stylolytic type of vein, which is also common, by the way, at Fosterville. You get gold basically as little beads or little knobs along the stylolites, and this is a very, a very good thing if you're looking for a Fosterville type deposit. Since 2018, we've completed roughly 106 holes. That's just as of phase 5. We're currently in the middle of phase 6. So we're more or less closer to 30,000 meters total drilled now, with about 140 holes in total. And basically the highlights, I won't go through all the highlights, but every phase has been what we consider an increasing success at this project. And in fact, phase 6 has already contributed, and we're only 40% through the program. Some of our best hits to date on the property. Just a quick look again at comparing Fosterville to Moosehead. Again, you see the association of coarse visible gold with fine banded sulfides and stylolites, and the mineralization at the mineralogy at Fosterville would include an antimony mineral called stibnite, whereas here we have an antimony mineral called boulangerite. So again, you're drawing those strong similarities between something that I think every company would like to have a Fosterville type target in their portfolio. This is kind of a busy map, and I apologize for it. I'll take full responsibility for it. But basically, as I mentioned, phase 6 has already delivered a number of hits for us, and I've tried to get them all on a screen or a map that would show them and kind of where they're scattered all over the property, which means multiple zones, and I'll get into that in a couple of slides. But clearly phase 6 has been a success so far, and I'm hoping to get 10,000 meters or so or more drill before spring breakup, and then we'll have that usual quiet period, but it won't be really quiet because obviously we'll be still getting assays in and making plans for testing the other targets that we have, and also planning for a little bit of work at Fleur. So this is basically the very recent, only this week, in fact, we got this back from Mercator, and basically it shows a vertical look down on top of the Moosehead property, and basically where our five main zones of mineralization sit. I hope everybody can read these terms, but anyway, this is the largest zone so far, the eastern trend, and it was basically the one that we intersected with our discovery hole. It's still open and growing, and more work will be done there. A little highlight from the work we've done this year is this little yellow section coming out of the left side of the eastern trend. This is the Footwall Splay, and we don't know quite how big it is yet, but it's delivered some very, very good intercepts. I think almost 5 meters of just about 47, 48 grams. And again, it's one of these things that kind of came at us out of nowhere. And again, just shows how detailed drilling really, is worth the effort to do at projects of this type. Of course, the western trend is the historical sort of area of no mineralization on the property. This is a new zone that we still don't know much about yet. There's only a couple of holes in it. And this is currently where Rig 1 is focused now down at South Pond, where we're drilling, I think, probably 10 or 12 holes. We only have a couple of holes reporting assays yet, but hopefully we'll get a batch now in the next few weeks and then put out some more good news there. But we'll have a video of this. So basically a look at it from many angles and turning it upside down and things like that. So we'll look forward to that at the end of the presentation. Future targets. We have a lot, and it's not easy to depict them on a map without having a reason why you're going to put a hole here. So basically this is a combination map of a structural interpretation showing the known linears that we can identify from the magnetic survey we flew in 2020, with some highlighted areas of till anomalies that really correspond and really show a strong linkage, and basically a good coincidental combination of gold in the actual till, as well as associated with structures. So, and actually Rig 2 is actually currently testing an anomaly as part of this till anomaly B that I'll show you in a few seconds. But so our targets outside of the main zones, which are these dark dots here, east trend, west trend, and south pond, are largely going to be chosen based on almost on what happens next, sort of thing. Because if we drill a hole at till anomaly B that hits a winner, I mean, I really don't want to leave that. So we may actually have to look at getting another drill, which is actually what we've been talking about lately, getting a third drill basically to help out. Even if it's just to get our 20,000 meters drilled in a reasonable time. So, but we have a number of target areas here that all have good, strong support in terms of geophysics, the geochemistry, some rocks, and of course our own drilling to date. So this is a snapshot of the area where Rig 2 is now working. Here's the actual hole location approximately, and what it's testing is this very significant, in fact, some of the highest soil values on the property here in the many hundreds of ppb, as well as gold in till, and as well some localized float in here. So hole 145 is in progress actually, and is testing this, and we've actually extended the hole a little bit to keep, this is basically new ground. So I mean, there's no drilling back here. There's in fact one short hole that Noranda drilled in 1990. That did get some anomalous mineralization, but it was never followed up. So, and we don't think the hole came close to testing anyway what this stuff would be coming from. So, hole 145 is underway, and we'll be drilling a few more holes in this region, testing some of these other till anomalies, and others, of course, will follow. But right now, this is where hole 145 is, and it is a hole in progress. So moving forward. We're we're drilling with 2 rigs. We've got just about 8,000 meters taken up right now in about 44 holes, and we're going to drill until spring breakup and then pick it back up again when the roads dry out. So we're not sure how long that break will be, but we're fully funded to carry out that work. And you know, hopefully with rig 2 now, you know, we'll find a couple of new reasons to be very happy and very pleased with the way things have gone for us so far at Moosehead. So Fleur de Lis, yeah, where did it come from? Well, like I said, and no, we're not running away from Moosehead, so get those thoughts out of your head. You know, there's a lot of excitement about exploration in Newfoundland right now. I mean, clearly, you know, Marathon, ourselves, Newfound Gold, and a host of other companies have flocked and are focused in the central part of the island. But you know, all of Newfoundland's gold production comes from another area of the province, actually, right aside the Fleur de Lis project area. In fact, that's where Anaconda have their mine, and the Rambler Ming copper gold deposit sits up there as well. And literally, you know, as many gold occurrences, if not more, than there are on the structures in central Newfoundland. So, and we've been kind of eyeing this target for, you know, a couple of years now. And we've actually been sneaking around up there doing some till samples behind everyone's back, and actually came up with 4 strong areas that we decided to group as one big project instead of 4 smaller ones, and ended up taking, you know, almost 1,900 claims, most of them, the vast majority of them by staking, so $65 a claim, so less about 100 grand. You know, we have that project, and you know, it's real. I mean, there's a lot of smoke up here. There's till, there's gold showings, and probably the most interesting thing is that there's one hole on that entire 475 square kilometer property that's actually testing anything for gold. There's a few holes drilled for asbestos and chromite and other things like that. But basically, you know, the project sits on the western side of the Bayvert line, and this is a fault you can trace right over to the UK, and in fact is closely associated with mineralization at Curranault and Coninish, which is Scotland's first commercial gold mine, which just opened a few months ago. So, you know, if they can open a gold mine over there, I mean, those rocks are looking pretty good, I'd say. So anyway, it's readily accessible. There's lots of good access through paved and secondary logging roads. Again, it's about an hour's drive from the assay lab and a drilling company. So when time comes to really get serious on this project, you know, cost will be cheap. But you know, for now, it's very cheap for us. We've hired Sean O'Brien to basically manage this project for us. So none of the technical team that's currently focused on Moosehead will have to worry about this. And as well, our phase 1 program will be contracted out to overburden drilling management, who are going to collect, you know, a science-based, you know, spaced collection of tills to basically properly survey this entire region. And we're looking at maybe 1,000 samples, maybe more, maybe a few less, but you know, and you know, we'll go from there. We'll focus in from there. But you know, it's potentially, you know, something that could be very valuable to Sokoman in terms of a spin out, or you know, who knows, maybe a senior partner or someone, you know, who's actually active in these rocks elsewhere in the world will want a part of this, and you know, I think we'll all benefit from that in the end. So basically what I just said. I mean, you know, I'm not going to read all this again, but you know, we have had gold till anomaly with up to 122 gold grains. You know, with more than a third of them pristine, which, you know, it's very clear that these gold grains haven't traveled very far. And you know, again, you know, it's also received some pretty recent, you know, detailed and new mapping, including geophysical surveys, satellite imagery. So there's a lot of science, you know, to help us, you know, figure out where these gold deposits may be hidden. And, you know, hopefully, you know, our efforts will be rewarded without, you know, a lot of effort. And, you know, that's why we placed this project in Sean's hands. And I'm confident he'll do a great job with it. So there's the story in a nutshell. I don't know if Peter wanted maybe to add anything while I get a drink of water or whatever, but will we take questions first, Cassie?
Yeah, no, I certainly think Peter could answer a question here. Peter, the elephant in the room is certainly newfound gold versus Sokoman very similar projects, similar geology, 30 kilometers away from one another. You are very familiar as an advisor from Newfound Gold. You're very familiar with them, and you're extremely familiar with us. So, can you just, maybe articulate to us why at this time there'd be such a discrepancy in our share prices?
Well, I can't. I guess I can talk about the project. I can't really talk about why why our stock price isn't doing better. Based on what I'm seeing, we obviously should be doing a lot better than we are. As far as the two projects go, though, I'm probably one of the few people that knows as much about both projects. I'm not privy to ongoing exploration in the sense of I only know about the public results that have come out. I'm a technical I'm on retainer for as a technical advisor to Newfound Gold, but I'm not privy to results as they come out. I only find out like today the two significant zones that they talked about today, released today, very important. Very important for them and important for us also, in the sense that they were much wider intersections. They were, I think, it was 40 meters of 26 grams per ton, almost an ounce per ton. These are huge, huge widths for those type of grades, and we haven't hit anything as wide as that. Our widest has been in the 11-meter range at 44 grams, but point of it is up until this result, the best one they had was at 19 meters of 90 grams, which is grade-wise is still much better. But if you look at the rock types, they are very similar. The geological setting is very similar. The mineralization is similar between Moosehead and the Queensway project. Um, the Fosterville analog is similar. Their gold is associated with these stylolytic zones, considered to be an epizonal type of deposit, as is the Moosehead property. The image that's on the screen right now gives you an idea of it. There's Moosehead core. There's a piece of core sitting right on top of that, right in the middle of the box. That's from Fosterville. Those are the type of things that really make the analogy come real. Uh, Tim went through some of the other stuff. I'm also, in addition to being an advisor to Newfound Gold, myself and Kevin and Al Keats were the auctioneers of that property. We staked it back in 1999. And interestingly enough, just about every showing that has been found on that property to date has been found by geochemistry and prospecting follow-up. We found, myself and Al Keats found the dome showing in 1999, and there's a picture on the Newfound Gold website of Al standing on top of the thing. That's too bad we couldn't have done a selfie, and we could have both been there, but I did take the picture. The interesting thing about it is, up until today, well, up until recently, when Newfound Gold started drilling, everything that was drilled, you had seen on surface. Now, the information that they released today, they talk about, and some of the stuff at the Lotto earlier, is that they have these footwall zones. As far as I know, we have never seen any of those footwall zones at surface on the Newfound Gold property, on the Queensway property. Queensway property and that linear, what we used to call the linear property, most of those things come to surface. You can see quartz veins on surface. There's a significant amount of rock. There's areas that are overburden covered. Lots of areas where you actually see the quartz on surface. That's how the road was found on the side of the road. That's why it's called that. The dome stuck out. The Keats baseline zone, you could see it on surface. You had to trench it to see it better, but you could see it on surface. You didn't, you know, the way it is. At Moosehead, the problem we have is you don't see any of that. It's heavily overburden covered, anywhere from, you might get 3 meters in places, but certainly you get up to 15 meters of overburden, which means we have to, we, Sokoman, have to use things like geophysics, which I haven't seen that it really works very well for targeting drilling here. Geochemistry, that's why we're using geochemistry. soils, they still, the jury's still out on whether how effective they are. But what we think are quite effective are tills. And that's why we're doing this follow-up with tills. So I think what's happened is that we are not getting recognition the same way as newfound gold. Newfound gold, it's interesting, Tim mentioned this today. They, in some ways, they benefited from our discovery back in 2018 of that 44 grams over 11 meters. They had optioned the property in 2016 and did some work in 2017, not very much in 2018. And finally in 2019, they did quite a bit more work, but 2018 wasn't too bad. So the point of it is that it was 2019, late 2019, when they drilled their first good hole. And of course, everything's gone on from there. So I think people still don't realize that we have something that is so significant. And as we drill and as we find more zones, the South Pond zone's a good example. This time last year, we didn't know about the South Pond zone. We haven't defined it for very much of a length. But in the next, when Tim shows you this thing, you can see the general feeling is that it's the extension of the western zone, the western trend. And there's 250 meters between those two zones. We see lots of opportunity here to make it lots of more drill holes that'll go in. The other problem, of course, we don't have the money that Newfound Gold has, so we don't have as many drills, and we don't see what we're drilling, so we're generally drilling blind. But I think as people recognize this, and as we drill more holes and get similar sort of results that Newfound Gold are getting, then I think people will start the share price will start reflecting that, because people will start believing in us a little better.
Thank you, Peter, for that, by the way.
Yeah, that was a great response. So I've got a question here. Given you've got about 25 targets that you're following up on the Moosehead project, do you ever think about scraping away the overburden to see what it looks like underneath all of that overburden? Is that something that could be done?
Well, it could be. It depends on where it's located, Kathy. As Peter mentioned, we've got a stubborn layer of till, anywhere from a few meters to 10 to 15 meters in some places, and unless you're certain that bedrock is fairly close, you're going to have to excavate a pretty large hole to look for something that may not be there. Because don't forget, you don't know what you're going to find when you dig that hole. I mean, is the till anomaly transported just slightly further than maybe you think it was? And as well, in terms of costs, I mean, it's probably just as cheap to drill a couple of holes, into a target like that, as opposed it is to trench, right? Because you still got to trench it, you still got to drill it, I think, at some point, right? Even though you've got you expose something, you still have to drill it. So, and the thought of really testing all of these anomalies with, first of all, by trenching, really isn't practical. I mean, if we could do it and certainly expose some bedrock, I'd love to. But the odds are that we're going to have to dig more than one hole to explain an anomaly. So I'd rather drill a hole than dig 4 with a backhoe, sort of thing. Right. So if that makes any sense, but if I can just scroll back, if you're talking about targets, I mean, all of those areas where you see, those comet-like things coming in with those lines. I mean, any one of those could have gold on them. Any one of those linear features. I mean, if you look at a cross section through Fosterville, they've got 6 parallel faults. The first, the third, and the fifth ones are mineralized. Not all of them, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's where they actually fold back onto themselves, and you're actually drilling parallel to them. Like, this is how the Footwall Splay came to be on Moosehead. We ended up having to drill at an awkward angle because of the position of the lake and not having enough ice, and we ended up cutting a zone that, wow, where did that come from? That's not the main zone. And so here we go. I mean, that's the thing. So any one of these targets, so I mean, 25 is probably underestimating it by not an order of magnitude, but certainly you could certainly drill 50 or 60 holes out here on discrete targets, and any one of them could deliver, a hit, right?
Absolutely. Now, Harold has a question, but he's he's on mute right now. So can we unmute Harold, please, Thomas?
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yep.
we can.
Okay, my question is, would you encounter or have trace accounts with palladium, platinum, ruthenium, osmium? Or if you could answer that, thank you.
No, we haven't assayed for those elements. I'm not familiar with those elements being very common. Peter can step in if he knows of something, but if they're very common in orogenic gold deposits, but you know, the rocks for those types of metals aren't really on our property, so I don't know. So what was the reason for asking that in terms of do you know of something, sir, an opportunity
Oh,
somewhere that would have those?
Absolutely, no way. I just thought I'd ask that question, and just hoping that perhaps trace minerals along those lines would also benefit the company, but if it's unlikely, that's fine.
Well, we do actually do an ICP package, which, you know, gets us silver, and occasionally we do get a strong hit in silver, but it's not consistent, and it seems to be restricted to a very specific set of veins that aren't, you know, the typical sort of veins. And again, you know, we could certainly try a suite of samples for those metals, because, you know, who knows? I mean, you know, but you know, discoveries can come in many fashions, right? You know, not just with a drill hole sometimes. So thank you for that, Harold. And yes, maybe it's something we can certainly look at, doing a few spot checks for those other elements. Thank you.
You're
Yeah, I
welcome.
guess, Peter here, one of the things, Harold, typically in these systems, PGEs, you do get gold with PGEs. You'll see that platinum group elements. So you'll see where they've got mineralization in it's usually a mafic rock. We have sediments here, sedimentary units. These are mafic intrusives usually that have those PGEs, somewhat like Boise's Bay or those type of systems. And the Marathon deposit in Ontario, for example. Those type of things, they'll have PGs, they'll have platinum, palladium, these various ones, ruthenium and osmium and all these weird ones. And usually they'll have gold. So they'll have platinum, palladium, and gold will be the three main elements they'll have. Unlike those, we'll have gold with arsenic, antimony type things like that, which you don't get in those other systems. So it's a completely different style of system.
Thank you for the lesson.
No problem.
I actually just wanted to jump in for 1 second, just because I recognized Harold's name, and I wanted to say thank you for the note that he sent on Twitter account, on Sokoman's Twitter account, that I wanted to let Tim and Peter know today, because Harold said that he has a newsletter with his private invest club, and he has given Sokoman stock a buy rating and included it in his newsletter. So I decided, to bring that up and say thank you in person, because it's always nice to hear from our investors when they recommend the stock.
Well,
Great.
also
Definitely.
to
Thank
note here is I've never recommended a gold stock, but this one seems pretty amazing, and I thought I want to be part of its rise.
Great.
Very happy to hear you.
That's great. Thank you. We love to hear
thank
that.
you.
Can I suggest, Tim, you mentioned running that one where you can
Video.
show the zones and turn them for people?
Yes.
I suggest you do that now, and then if the people have some questions after that.
Okay, so let me get out of this. How do I? An overview, looking down on the project with the drill hole plan coming in, and zooming in now to see the actual 4 or 5 main zones as we've identified them to date. And, this is really good to see this in this fashion, because you really get to see how things, may or may not be, as you think they are when you're standing on the surface. In fact, I'm just going to pause this right now, because if you look at it, this is the new South Pond zone. And initially, when we were looking at this, we thought it had more of a northwesterly sort of trajectory. And, it still may. In fact, it still may just kind of curl around and hook in through there because, nothing is really ever flat as a board and, nice and evenly thick and perfectly uniform all the way through. You're going to get gaps and offsets and things like that. So, maybe in the same fashion that, these two are offset, that this is offset by the same amount from here. So, but, that's the beauty of drilling, like every hole you learn something new and you get to add more to the, your knowledge base. But so yeah, so this is basically where the new South Pond zone is, and just on this side of it, of course, is where the float cluster was that we found that averaged, I think 36 grams. A dozen samples or so were sampled, and that's the average up to. We had a high of 157 grams. But anyway, so let's just keep going and have another look at it. So you can see here there's a zone that may or may not be linking. Here's the west trend, here's the east trend. What's this thing starting to come in here now? All this is fairly new material, right? So, and of course, the Footwall Splay, which the high grade stuff, could that also be part of the linkage between east and west? We still have yet really to answer that. And, again, it's just a lack of holes, right? I mean, yeah, we look like we have a lot of holes here, but you know what? It's not enough. Trust me. So here we come again now, looking at it from the east side. Basically, all the zones are dipping towards your your tabletop there. And again, we'll come in and see out of things. If someone wants me to stop, I'll probably stop there. Oh no, we're going to actually keep going just because we're going to zoom in a bit. I think get a little better look. So yeah, so here you can start to see some of those little inliers or outliers, if you will. This is the main western trend here. There's something reaching out here. This is the Footwall Splay. I think we had 4.7 meters, I think, of just under 50 grams here. And of course, this is the eastern trend with the 1801 discovery hole in it. And this is what we call the eastern trend south. We're not quite sure how it lines up. It may actually start trend out here beyond the reach of a lot of these earlier holes. So again, how many holes do you need? Well, you need a lot, especially when you can't see what your target is, through the overburden. But anyway.
Tim, we have a question. We have a question. If you can take
okay, yeah.
Now. Yeah.
Well, the question, this is Christopher Weber. You mentioned Fosterville had 6 parallel structures. Seeing the 3D model, is it unreasonable to suggest that 4 areas may connect into parallel structures with a connector structure between the Footwall Splay and the west zone?
Well, we clearly, and I said 6, that was just a number I threw out. There's probably more faults than that actually at work at the Fosterville deposit. There may actually be dozens bedding parallel faults that, are sometimes difficult to see, but, we certainly see here evidence of multiple, I think, linked structures. I think the east trend, which is this chap here, and the west trend, and these other ones are all linked at some point. I think they're all related in terms of potentially the same event. Where and whether they link at depth, remains to be seen, and will require a lot of much deeper drilling. And I think what we're looking at here basically is just a feathering out, of a master structure at depth. And as it got closer to surface, pressures and things, caused the thing to maybe form something similar to a braided stream effect sort of thing, with structures pinching and swelling and coming and going and sort of thing. And I hope that answers your question, but I just want to point out again here. So here we see that basically oblique, Footwall Splay zone just coming off of, the main eastern trend, and kind of inching its way towards the western trend. Whether it does or not, maybe it skies out and is basically eroded off, which is possible because we're only very shallow here. I mean, these intercepts are only 30, 40 meters below surface. So, by the time they would have actually reached surface, current day surface, we may have already, they may have already been eroded by glacial effects, but, time will tell. But again, it just opens up, some of the possibilities moving forward.
And now, Christopher said, in short, gold and red connect and blue and green connect, which is what we're saying. So the western trend goes into we think, into the South Pond stuff, and
yes,
the
exactly
eastern and the eastern south.
Let me just
Now,
see if
Stephen
I can
Carlton asked, early days, I know, but how would you mine these sheets of mineralization?
Ooh, well, I'm not a mining engineer, but you know, clearly, I'm just going to stop this again. Um, you know, it all depends on a lot of factors. You know, how close the material is to surface. I mean, some of this would clearly be all mined with a very shallow and quite limited open pit. You know, we know that the South Pond zone comes to surface, and we drilled underneath it, and 30 meters down, we hit I think 4 meters of 64 grams. So we know that and that's something you may be able to pit out. It all depends on the rock mechanics, even like how stable are your rocks. I mean, do you need to to make a pit twice as big just to keep it safe or stable? And again, the price of gold, a whole bunch of factors go in. But what you could see here are basically small pits, basically high grading, getting a good cost base under your belt at the start, with adits basically chasing, or ramps chasing down the higher grade mineralization where it gets beyond the economics of an open pit. So again, I'm not an engineer, and but I do see possibilities for that based on the fact that these zones most likely do come to surface, not just the South Pond stuff, but even the stuff at in the Eastern Trend, the Footwall Splay. And we know that Altius did trench actually and reach mineralized bedrock, the only one trench that ever reached bedrock, but it was a massive pit, and in fact it probably cost them $100,000 just to dig it. So
You might be able to show them that in the start of this thing, because you can see the open area where it's still open. No trees are growing, right, Tim?
Yeah, that's right. Actually, it shows up on one of our slides in one of our earlier presentations as a heart-shaped brown reclaimed area, and that's basically the size of the pit they had to dig to get down and see bedrock. Maybe in an area 10 meters by 5 meters. So they had to dig
I
something.
guess answering the question of the mining overall, though, these type of deposits are generally they're mined from underground. Anything that you can get, if you can get 3-4 meters of the 3-4 meters of width, generally consistent, then you would just follow them down, and you go down with a decline, and you come across on your various working levels, and you mine them. Now, Christopher again asked the distance between these two zones, the Eastern Trend and the Western Trend. That's what, Tim, 150 meters, something like that.
Yeah, less than 200 meters.
Yeah. So you might need 2 declines. You might need, you might just put 1 decline down and come across through the middle or something. It's really too early to say that, but you would have to mine these underground, because typically these type of deposits will continue down to, not unusual, to 1,000 meters and maybe beyond that. Casa in Kirkland Lake is down. I think they're down 7,000-8,000 feet. They're close to getting 2,500 meters type thing, right?
Yes, and Peter, I guess just to use a local example, the past producing Hammerdown mine, which is now under advanced development by Maritime Resources, was both an open pit, where the stuff came to surface. They pitted it and then ramped down on it. So probably a scenario very similar to that could exist here at Moosehead. But time will tell. We got to drill a few more holes yet, but let's all stay optimistic. So, okay, we'll continue with the movie. And, so basically, if you look at this, if there's 2 widely spaced holes, and then it's the wild blue yonder, heading south towards, I think it's over half a kilometer down to the nearest drill holes, where, by the way, Altius did intersect some veining with visible gold in. So, I mean, this is all just, prime bush here to, for testing. So I'm quite excited about that as well. So just continue on with our video, and yeah, Peter, remind me to show that that trench outline at the end there. If it doesn't show up, I'll just go back to the beginning. But yeah, so I mean, you can see, these ore bodies. I'm not going to call it an ore body, but these mineralized zones, are quite variable in shape. They're never uniform. They're never smooth, continuous. Like a dinner plate sort of thing, where it's all all neat and confined. Sometimes you actually have to work a little harder at it. And so here, if it shuts off in time, yes,
You can just, you can just see it there. Right there, yeah.
There. that's a
Great.
big trench, you know, that's $100,000. So you can get, we can get 150, we can get 600 meters of drilling, you know, that's probably 4 drill holes for what it would cost to drill and reclaim this trench. So you know, you'd have to really know what you're looking at there. You know, if you drill a hole and it collared like right at bedrock, which we have in this area here, some of the first holes we drilled in the Western Trend, you know, were quite spectacular. I mean, we had over 1,000 grams over a narrow interval, but within 2 meters of surface. So, you know, that's an area you'd probably want to do it. And we have, you know, drilled in this area and gotten those kinds of results. So, but, you know, in terms of, is this the way to explore here? Probably not. But, you know, given the right situation, again, you know, an intercept very close to surface or bedrock interface where you know, because your casing went through it, you know, that you're only dealing with a couple of meters of overburden. Yeah, you could probably do it.
Yeah, and just Tim, while you've got that map on there, I think it's really, it's important to say too, the ice directions here are essentially north-northeast. So pretty well along the trend of those 3 ponds. You got North Pond, South Pond, and then you got the next one down is Camp Pond. All 3 of those had lake sediment, high lake sediment values. All 3 of them, that's what got Noranda, who found this thing originally, made the first discovery. That's why they went in, and all Noranda found, prospectors found, were a bunch of white quartz boulders, and they were on North Pond, I think at the north end of North Pond.
Yeah, right around here, Peter.
Yeah, somewhere like that. And that's what started this whole exploration. Now, if the ice direction is north-northeast, and Camp Pond has a high lake sediment, it's way down. And we're not even drilling down around that area yet. There's been very little work done down there. But if and that's still not down to the boundary of our property, we still have a lot of room down to the southwest. The gold that came in that to made that lake sediment had to come from further down to the southwest. So the potential here, and we've got areas, Tim, you know, as you mentioned to me in the past, I think up north, up by that little pond, north of North Pond, that little thing there, there's holes up there that all drew visible gold in them. Really
Yes,
haven't
that's right.
been followed up, right?
Yep, just very lightly. And yeah, so there's over 2 kilometers basically from that, from this dumbbell or barbell shaped pond down to here, which is, you know, I guess these are 500-meter blocks, 5, 10, 15, yeah, 2 kilometers. There's visible gold in drill holes along this entire length. You know, that's a sizable chunk of geology. And, you know, when you're exploring it with a drill, you have to take the good with the bad, because, you know, you can't see what you're actually, you know, the orientation of what you're testing until you get enough holes in it, like we have, you know, for the main mineralized trends, right? You know, there's not enough information up here to model anything up here. So, you know, we could be missing the trend, it could be offset. So there's there's a lot of possibilities here, but, you know, the fact that it is, and Peter's right, there's gold up here, you know, in the ground, not just in float, but, you know, in a drill hole.
Tim, I have a question for you, because I do get a lot of phone calls and questions from our shareholders, but a few have said they think the property size is rather small. But how if you were to plop the Fosterville Swan zone onto your property, what would be the dimension of that Fosterville high grade deposit? That's it?
See this brown patch?
Yeah.
That's about it. You know?
Oh my God.
You know,
So
it's not very big, right? You know, it's not very big. What it is, it's a chute, right? And that's the thing that, you know, we have to keep in mind when we're drilling holes here. You know, we get an intersection and then we drill, you know, alongside it 25 meters away or whatever, and, you know, we don't get it. Well, what happened? You know, well, these things occur as chutes, and, you know, a chute is something that can be, you know, any orientation. So Fosterville, to my knowledge, or at least what I've read in technical reports, I've been there, yes, but I mean, I wasn't underground, and you know, Swan Zone wasn't even, you know, a warm thought in anyone's mind at that time. Didn't know it was there. But, you know, 50 meters in strike length, you know, 4 to 15 meters, you know, in thickness. But the down plunge, right? It's the down plunge. It's the chute. You know, it's that plunging pencil
Be like a pencil, yeah.
That really gives it that. And you know, In some cases, you'll have those things and you can chase them for a long ways. And in some cases, you'll find they get broken up by later faulting, and you've got to kind of feel around for them a little bit, right? But 50 meters is not a big, it's not a big area, right? So you have to keep that in mind as well. And a lot of these historical holes that were drilled in this property were drilled with 100-meter spacing. So you could easily miss stuff.
And Tim, how many claims is this total, this property?
98.
98. Well, put this in context. The linear property that where Newfound Gold up until now has been drilling, it's 50 claims.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
And
Well,
again,
that
if I'm
really-
not correct, if
It's
I'm not
almost
mistaken,
twice the size of Newfound Gold's.
and Peter,
Pardon?
if I'm not mistaken, from the dome down to the knob, which is where the most of the drilling is going to be, that's about 2 kilometers, isn't it?
Oh, it's at least that, yeah. And of course the Lotto's north of that too. So I'd
Okay.
say it's good 3.5 kilometers, right?
Okay, so yeah, so basically twice what we have here in terms of, we know where there's visible gold at the
Now,
north
the
end.
linear property, the one north of the highway where all the drilling has been done to date. Now, I know, I think Newfound Gold is obviously going to continue. They keep adding drills, so they're going to be drilling more along that trend. But the bottom line is the linear is where most of the, certainly anything that's been released has all been on the linear property, which is 50 claims. So,
Yeah, so
Great. So Tim, just while we're wrapping, I don't think there's any more questions from our audience, our listeners, but I think just to wrap up, could you just state 3 reasons why you think we should have lots of Sokoman stock in our portfolios?
oh, well, there's several reasons. I mean, and some we've already discussed, basically is I guess the market cap of Sokoman. I think we all agree, based on results, and clearly, Newfound have had some fantastic results, even better than our better hole. So, um, I think so. Market cap for one, I think we're undervalued. I think the fact that there's still 70 to 75% of this property really has not been tested at all. In fact, I'd say at least half this property's strike length has never had a drill hole. And we're funded to drill another 12,000 meters plus, and who knows where discovery may come from there. So that, and we're going to be cranking out news on hopefully Fleur de Lis, not in the near future, but certainly looking down the road. It's something I think that shareholders can look at and say, wow, that was a good thing we did back then. At least I'd like to think that anyway right now. But and that could be something that could unlock a lot of value out of Sokoman as a standalone sort of entity, or like I said, there's people mining these deposits, these types of deposits that we're chasing at Fleur de Lis, and they may want to have a say in what we do there, which we'll certainly talk to anyone who wants to come in and partner with us on those things. But for now, it's a district scale play. I think it was a coup for us to do it. Newfoundland is a hot commodity now in terms of gold exploration, and so why not take the opportunity to acquire something in our own backyard? Why leave that opportunity for a newcomer to come in, and basically, raise a bunch of cash on it and stuff. I mean, that's not why we staked it, to do that sort of thing. We staked it for the future of Sokoman, really, and we think Sokoman has a long future.
Great. That's a great finish to our webinar. Thanks everybody for hanging on to the very last minute of our show. It's been really exciting. We're very, very pleased with what you guys have done so far, and look forward to communicating all this good stuff to future existing and future shareholders. Thanks so much, guys.
Kathy, there's a question
Yes.
there from Arthur Alander. Is there a way for me to replay the beginning part of the call? I missed it because of audio. Do we have any answer for him? Okay.
Yeah, everything's going to be taped.
Perfect.
So, or has been taped. So we'll be having that on our website in a couple of days. And we'll be
Perfect.
sending it out to everybody that's on our list and through social media as well. So,
He says, thank you.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for participating and
Hey,
hanging on
guys.
to the last minute.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Thank you very
everybody.
much. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
everybody. Take care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Team
Enjoy the
Sokoman.
PDAC.